Good afternoon and welcome to the SMOOVE PLC post-Capital Markets Day investor Q&A session. Throughout this recorded session, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. And I'd now like to hand you over to Jesper with Fogstrup, CEO. Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining this retail investor Q&A session that we put on following the upload of the recording of the Capital Markets Day we did a couple of weeks ago. I hope you managed to watch that recording, and judging by some of the questions that's been pre-submitted, that is the case. If you haven't, you've got questions, obviously submit them. I would encourage you to go spend the time and watch that session for background. I am here today with a group of my colleagues, Michael, our CFO, Ed Madell, our CTO, Simon, our Chief Commercial and Growth Officer, Jamil, our Chief Product Officer, and Ian Birthright, one of our senior product managers, who's been in the business for a good long time and have seen different iterations of where we're heading. So delighted to have everybody with us today. Delighted that you're choosing to spend some of your afternoon with us today. Just before we dive into the questions, I'm sure you've all seen this slide in presentations that we've done previously, and also in the CMD recording from the investor section of the website. I'll leave this up for the Q&A. Hopefully that'll create a bit of a framework for questions and for sort of providing a framework for different parts of our business and where the questions are relevant to. So with that, as was the comment before, please go ahead and submit any questions in the Q&A tab, and we will try and answer as many as we can in the 40 minutes or so we have going until we are due to complete. But let's dive in for the pre-submitted questions. First question is, a challenger conveyancing firm named Juno publishes data and claims to have shaved off sometime weeks off the transaction times. In fact, Juno claims to have a median time to exchange of about 90 days, and that they back that claim with published data. The question is, do you plan to track and publicly advertise SMOOVE Complete results on exchange durations? So just to remind everyone, SMOOVE Complete is our platform business where self-employed consultant conveyancing lawyers come to do conveyancing, providing them more flexibility, less controlled environment, as some of them refer to they've had in previous roles in more traditional law firms, and we help them be more effective by us taking care of the onboarding and the post-completion, allowing them just to focus on doing the conveyancing. We're pretty early in that journey. We started placing ads for CCLs, the consultant conveyancing lawyers, a couple of months ago. We now have just less than a handful operating on the platform, and more to join over the coming weeks and months. And to answer the question, absolutely, we'll look at that data. We will look to, that's an internal sort of KPI, obviously, and how fast do we push these cases through in a safe environment. And as it relates to completion times, we may choose to publish those in the future. We haven't necessarily made a call on that. We started operations in that business just at the tail end of October. Moving to the next question that I will hand to Michael, our CFO, to answer. If the full 5 million of the tender offer allocation is not taken up, what is your plan for the remaining balance? Will you execute on market purchases? Michael, do you want to take that question, please?
Sure. So starting with the last question first, we are unlikely to execute on market purchases. One thing to keep in mind is that we're constrained here by the stock exchange rules, which mean that the amount or the level of on-market purchases we can do are referenced to the recent trading volume of the stock, and we're fairly thinly traded, and that means that we couldn't really return capital in any sort of meaningful way if we were to do on-market purchases. So we're not anticipating huge amounts of cash coming back by the tender not being taken up. If there is excess cash, then we'll use that to continue our strategy and to possibly go faster in building out, investing in e-conveyancer and building out Smooth Start and Smooth Complete. As we do that, we'll be guided by our profitability and return metrics. So we'll be in the first instance guided by our overall profit target, and we've now have forecasts in market. And then we'll also be guided by our return targets for each of the component businesses. So, for example, within Smooth Start, we're looking at the cost of acquiring estate agent branch, versus the return that those branches bring us. And only when we meet those return criteria will we be unlocking future investment.
Great, thank you, Michael. The next question is, would you need a formal collaboration with one of the top 3 agency portals to meet your midterm targets for Smooth Start uptake? Probably Simon, you're best placed to address that question if you could, please.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I think thus far we've focused on targeting smaller estate agency firms directly, and the reason for that is that they represent very much the lion's share of the market, and we believe that's the best opportunity for us right now. However, it's worth saying we're very open-minded about the best routes that we might take in the future. As long as we can manage any third-party payaways, we'd be interested in looking at distribution partnerships in more detail, and we've started to have some of those conversations as well. Not just perhaps with property portals, but also we're interested in CRM systems used by estate agents, other prop tech businesses, and others in the market. To answer the question more specifically, we don't think we'll need to achieve our midterm targets, but they could certainly help us accelerate or exceed plans.
Thank you, Simon. The next question was, do you see yourself making any acquisitions in the PropTech space to boost your product offering? We haven't seen anything so far that would accelerate our plans, be it relative to e-conveyancer, Smooth Start, or Smooth Complete. However, if something was to emerge, and we regularly sort of scan market, and as any business, we also on the receiving end of inbounds, then we obviously be happy to look at it and delighted if we could shave off some of the organic build to drive faster. I mean, as was outlined in Ed's presentation or part of the presentation on the recording, a large proportion of our tech stack now is taken off the shelf. So whether it be licensing, whether it be partnering, or whether it be acquisition, if we see the best route to market, then we'll execute against that. The next question, and Simon, by the looks of it, that looks like a question you'll be well placed to answer as well. I see you have around 2% market share of UK transaction volumes. What do you need to get that to 4% and beyond? And is this your target? I'll say we sort of market share sort of hovers around 2 to 3%, but regardless, I think the promise of the question is the same. So, Simon, do you want to take that, please?
Yeah, of course. So there are three kind of key areas that we're focusing on in terms of driving growth for econ. The first one is technology, which you'll have seen detailed in some of the content we've provided. So new user interface for our customers, new APIs to make us easier to do business with and to increase conversion. Furthermore, second one is new business. So we are winning new partnerships. We recently announced through an RNS winning a deal with Mojo, which is part of the Confused and Uswitch group. And the third area is just about pushing active user count and our instructions per active user. So using data to make our sales and marketing functions more efficient, to deliver a service proposition to market. And when we execute our plans in those above categories, we would expect to achieve a significant increase in market share. I would say, however, that we don't have a specific target for market share, and in part, or in main, that's because we're trying to grow the market as well as taking more of the existing market itself. So it probably isn't the best KPI for us to follow. So we're focused very much on active user count, instructions per active user, and winning new partnerships.
Great, thanks, Simon. Maybe just to add to that, we're sort of playing in one side of the market today in buyers predominantly through brokers and lenders, and obviously Smooth Start opens up the opportunity for us to also get sell cases, and typically sellers buy as well. So that opens up sort of another side of the market. So there's so much to go at just yet. Next question was, how many conveyancing consultants do you have enrolled in Smooth Complete? I assume is the background to the question here. So I think the RNS said that by the time we pushed that out at the end of November, we had 9 CCLs live. We've added to that since then, and we are past 10. I think the real important thing is that we have them. We have now, as I said before, less than a handful operational on the platform. They're working on live cases. We've actually done a couple of completions since starting. So very, very pleased with the progress that we're making. And we have a real good pipeline of both people wanting to join and people having signed already, ready to join. And they'll join over the coming sort of months. I think the opportunity for us now is really sort of balance the amount and timing of facing when we allow CCLs to go live with the volume of work they bring or we bring to the platform, and making sure that we bring a great customer experience to both the mover but also all of the stakeholders, sort of living up to the premise that we have in our strategy. The next question is live and was, how big of an opportunity is there for Smooth Start? What further investment is needed here? So maybe I'll start on that, and then hand to Michael. Anybody else want to add to that? So the way we think about the market, and you can Google how many estate agents in the UK, and you get sort of a different answer from different places. So maybe a good way to think about it that I think we referenced in the CMD recording as well, was if you go to a Rightmove or Zoopla or similar, you get typically sort of 16,000 estate agents, and that's probably a good indication for those that are active in the market. We're very focused on the long tail of those. There's some information that Michael can talk to in what analysts have said about the opportunity in that space. We are excited about it, both in quant of getting access to more estate agents and having them sign up to Smooth Start. What we're most excited about is having them sign up and also start instructing conveyancing cases, so into the ecosystem, and start using the panels that we have in place, the sort of background to the business in eConveyancer. And that's performing ahead of expectations at the moment on both of those counts. Number of estate agents signed up, and the start of flow of cases into eConveyancer as well. So very pleased with that. I'll say, as I said before, this is early days for Smooth Start 2, longer than Smooth Complete. pushed Smooth Start into commercial release at the tail end of July. I think it's fair to say that August and part of September was sort of preoccupied with leave, holiday, bank holidays, and others. So we have realistically been in market for probably about 3 months, and the performance and the feedback is good. Also, as it relates to some of the pain points that we expected and was happy that we're now validating were valuable to the target audience of estate agents, such as making sure that anti-money laundering checks are performed in a compliant manner, something that HMRC has pushed out fines to a number of estate agents. That's giving us a little bit of support in the conversations and interest for the product. Maybe Michael, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would just add, as you referred to, there's a slide towards the back of the Capital Markets Day presentation where we talked about the medium-term view and our ambition for that business over the medium term, which is broadly 3 years. Is that we would have anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 agents, or branches rather, and at that level we would be around 6 to 9% of the level of Rightmove. And we have some forecasts out in market. I think that they broadly have a volume of branches around that, and that's about a 7 million revenue business for Smooth Start over the medium term. The second part of your question was about investment. We've, as we said in some of our announcements, we've taken some initiative to reduce the size of the cost base. And the follow-on from that is we're not looking to increase the cost base within the core infrastructure of the business. But what we might do is add to what I would call field OpEx. And in the case of Smooth Start, that would be adding additional salespeople. But we would only add those salespeople once we've proven out the unit economics. So once we're fixed on how much it costs to acquire a branch and then what the future value of those branches. So it's very much a case of the investment moving in tandem with the return criteria.
Thank you. Let's move to the next question, which is, the share price is up circa 20% since mid-November. What's the idea of not giving retail investors access to the same information at the same time? If you want to attract retail investors, then you should treat everyone equally. Thanks for that question. A couple of things on that. So first of all, it's been a while since we've had one of these sessions. We are very committed to speaking to all of you, to the broader sort of investor base and potential investor base. I think I'm getting a little bit of a vibe that behind this question is we did the CMD and then we did the recording. The recording was available just a couple of days after the actual CMD. Our thinking was we want to give everybody access to the actual premise of the question as close as possible to at the same time, which we are obligated to do. We sort of just couldn't fit that amount of people that actually registered for this session into the room. So that was probably one of the constraints. I take it. I think the more excitement for the journey that we're on, the better, and we'll love to share and bring as much clarity around that. And that's why we're here today, to answer questions. But I get it. The only thing I'll add to that is one question that's been raised previously in one of these retail investor sessions has been, can you make research available? Now, research hasn't been available for quite a while. We recommenced research with our brokers, Panmure Gordon, at around the same time as we did the interims. We also, I'm quite eager for everyone to have access to that. We can't, for internal Panmure Gordon and the regulatory MiFID rules, make that research available. We are working with Panmure Gordon to make the research available through a channel as soon as we possibly can. And we'll obviously communicate that as that becomes available. So it's not for lack of desire. But so thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Yeah, really do. Okay, let's move to the next question, which is, would changes to a tightening of regulation in the property market have a positive and negative impact on the business? I'll maybe start, and if anybody from the rest of the team has a view, then let's try and cover that as well. I think before I joined Smooth, I was in banking, and clearly there's a very different regulatory framework in banking than there is both in the property side of the stakeholder roadmap that we touch, and in the legal framework that we touch. And as it relates to Smooth Complete, we are regulated by the CLC and get some conversations and obviously regulatory oversight in that business. I think I'll find it hard for myself to agree with more regulation as a good thing, sort of as a broad note. I will say though that there's probably things that would help on a more structured, maybe regulatory framework. And the fact that it today takes on average in industry I think that's still about 154, 155 days from a sale is agreed to you sit in your front room if you're a buyer. Probably calls for some better rails in the industry, and that's what we're executing against. And if regulation is helping us get there to some extent, then I don't think necessarily it's a good thing. I will say this though, I was at the Negotiator Estate Agency Conference a couple of Fridays ago, and there was a panel talking about conveyancing at that. It was sort of the tail end of a Friday afternoon, just before England was playing. So it wasn't super well attended, but it was a good conversation actually. And I actually asked the panel that question: would you think that regulation was a good thing? More regulation was a good thing? And the views from the panel was, well, legal firms are already regulated, so don't really need it. But I think as a whole, I think the real pain points and why the home moving process is fundamentally broken is because we don't have the rails. And as I said before, if we need a bit of regulation or more regulation to the point, then I think that would help us execute faster because of the very desperate, unorganized way that the industry operates today. I don't know if any of the team has anything to add to that conversation or to that question.
I was just going to briefly add that regulation of some of our introducer partners can sometimes be a benefit. So we've seen with Smooth Starts that one of the best sort of sales routes in is to talk to estate agents about the HMRC fines that were periodically given to estate agents for not meeting AML and ID verification criteria and legislation. So it can, although it can be it can lengthen processes sometimes, it also gives us a good avenue or a discussion point with partners.
Great, thank you. Sam is asking, how many CCLs do you have using Smooth Complete, and how do you look to speed up its adoption? So I think I answered it before, but just to be super clear, we got, I think the RNS said we had 9 live. We have more than 10 live now. That is ahead of the expectation we would have had at this point in time, and gets us a lot closer to what we had anticipated to have at the end of the financial year. I think I know there's a real desire for more consultant conveyancing lawyers to join Smooth Complete, and that creates a great pipeline for us. We're very selective in who we want to join the platform, in that we don't really talk to any conveyancers with less than 5 years experience, and we're pretty ruthless on we want them to have the same DNA and wanting to do a great job for the consumer or the mover, and we want them to be sort of capable of following process and sticking with our rules, both for standardization and making sure that the risk is managed well, and that sort of goes to they operate on our permissions, our platform, our framework, our permissions with lenders and of course on our insurance. So I'll say we will speed it up. We can speed it up right now. There's no bottleneck in adding CCLs to the platform right now. I'm sure though that we will find some that sort of typical scaling of against an opportunity, and we'll address them as we get to them. Thanks for that question too. Next question says, will you consider paying a dividend in the future? Don't know if Michael wants to answer that question or take that question. Michael, or I'm happy to.
Yeah, no, I'll take that question. So we're not paying a dividend at the moment because we're in an investment phase from our businesses. So we're investing in eConveyancer and trying to make that business more dynamic after a period of years of underinvestment. We're building Smooth Start and Smooth Complete. And the aim of all of that is to build a business with a better quality of earnings and more diversified, more resilient sources of earnings. And at the end of that journey, that investment phase, we would hope that business with a better quality of business would become a dividend payer. But we have to get through the investment phase first, and we expect that will last for a couple more years yet.
Great, thank you. Probably the next question is for you too, Michael. When do you anticipate reaching profitability?
Sure. So there is a bit on this in the Capital Markets Day, the end of my section, but I'll kind of paraphrase those messages here. So we are anticipating further losses in the next financial year, which ends March 2024. And there are a few things behind that. One is the market, where we are anticipating some very difficult trading conditions, and we're positioning the business to trade successfully through that. So we're looking at how we manage yield and getting more pound out of every conveyancing case that we handle. But regardless of that, those self-help initiatives, trading is still going to be tough next year. Also, next year is the year where we take the new businesses of Smooth Start and Smooth Complete, and we take them from early launch and pilot to businesses of real scale, and that will necessarily involve some degree of further losses next year. Once we do that, we are looking to get the business approaching break even in the year ended March 2025, and within that, we expect that Smooth Start and Smooth Complete will make meaningful contributions to profit, and then we're looking to have a more seriously profitable business in FY26, and the forecasts that are out in market from Panmure Gordon show a level of EBITDA of around £4 million in 2026. So that's the profile that we're aiming for.
Great, thanks, Michael. There's a question asking, ultimately, how automated do you think the house buying process will become? And do you anticipate that blockchain will become used in the legal part of contracts? I'll start, but I'll also welcome anyone, but I can think that Jamila and Ian may have a view on where we are. I think that what's attractive of the part where we play more in the home buying process today, in the more conveyancing part of the home moving process, is that a lot of it is very transactional. And what we are proving in our Smooth Complete business is that we can take people and onboard them using, say, Digital Move. Our onboarding tool has now done more than 100,000 onboards into the conveyancer, and the post-completion. There seems to also be an opportunity in how do we interpret different information that come into the conveyancer, and having done sort of OCR very early in my career, the sort of 20 years or 25 years later version of that is obviously AI and machine learning and how we're interpreting some of that and making suggestions to the professional that they can interpret and make possible. I'll also say that we're seeing some players in industry outsourcing parts of the work. And I've always been encouraged by, if you can outsource it, then you can probably automate it. So that's an opportunity too. But that's probably the top. Oh no, on the blockchain, yeah, it may well be that blockchain can help with smart contracts and the like of it. I think the industry as a whole is somewhat behind in getting to that point, although even some of the communication flow, the messaging between the different stakeholders, there's some parties that's trying to automate that using blockchain too. Not sure if blockchain is necessarily the right application across the sort of whole piece or parts of it, but it may very well be. Jamil, I hope I didn't steal all of the thunder. What would you add to that, maybe?
Yeah, I think I'd echo what you said. We've seen in our research looking at conveyancing and the conveyancing process especially, it's incredibly manual. There are parts of it that are incredibly inefficient. The concept of chasing, I put that in inverted commas, of estate agents calling mortgage brokers, calling conveyancers, calling movers, and that network goes around trying to find the status of things. Parts of it are incredibly inefficient, and I definitely think there is a role for automation there. To answer the question, I think yeah, there are manual parts of that process, both communication, but equally tasks, getting documents, pulling documents, collecting information is often done manually with conveyancers logging in to systems and pulling the right files out. We definitely think there's an opportunity for automation there. I think there is still a definite need for legal knowledge also, and trained conveyancers that are regulated help do that. With the blockchain point, yes, but I think it probably goes back to what you were talking earlier on about regulation in the market and those things. It might need the nudge from a regulator to make it happen one way or the other. I think for us, though, we'd probably be fairly flexible in how we work to that. I don't know if anyone else wants to add something in. Probably looking at Ian.
Yeah.
Expert.
It's a good point, and especially around sort of blockchain and regulation. And Ian, you sit close to sort of the land registry. Do you have anything to add? Sort of some of the conversations that, or maybe not.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'd add on the blockchain is there's plenty of people looking at it. We've certainly looked at it too. I think we're keeping an eye on it, as the land registry, as others are as well. So it may very well have a place, but I think there's some work still to do, to determine its actual place. But I think the opportunities on automation across the whole industry are absolutely massive. We saw 2 years ago ID took over, and there's so many other opportunities for us and for others, to really help the conveyancers and the conveyancing process to make those efficiencies.
Great, thank you. I'm sort of looking at it from another industry perspective and looking at the home moving or just the conveyancing right now. And why that makes me so excited is there's so much opportunity today. There's no normalization of data that you sort of would expect in many other industries that's gone even through a sniff of digital disruption. So tons to go at. That was the last question we had in the Q&A. I'll just maybe open up and see if anybody else from our side has anything to add on any of the questions that I maybe have failed to invite people in to make contributions. Anyone? Great. Well then, maybe just to wrap up, thank you first of all for joining today and for your many questions, both pre-submitted and not. Give us an insight also into what's on your mind. We are incredibly excited about what's ahead of us, both in the months and the years ahead. Despite the sort of challenging or uncertain sort of market as we see right now, we just need some calm and some rates to come back, and the market's sort of moving. But as it relates to our performance, we sort of talked to very excited about where we're heading at the moment. So we'll keep you updated on that. If there are any additional questions, then please direct them to Walbrook. We'll make sure they get answered. If check on board the sort of point around treating everybody equally, and that invitation is open to anyone. Any questions, please go ahead and get them to Walbrook, and we'll make sure to answer them as soon as we can. So that, thank you again for joining. We're getting closer to the end of December, so have a happy festive season when you get there as well. Thank you.
Thanks to all the members of the SMOOVE PLC management team for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close the session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of SMOOVE PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's session, and good afternoon to you all.